Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to Molby On The Spot. And this is, you're not quite weekly as of recently, chance for you to get the wit and wisdom of Mr. Jan Molby. Thanks to Anfield Index Pro, as we have a look back on what's been happening lately. As ever, I am podcasting to you from my field here, very hot and sticky field in beautiful rural Ireland, and it's great. I'm not going to complain about it. And I'm joined, of course, by Mr. Jan Molby, so let's welcome him back to your ears after a little while. Jan, how are you getting on, man?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks, Trevor. I know it's a bit uncomfortable for everybody with this unbearable heat, isn't it? But it's only for 3 days, and I guess by the time this podcast is out, it'll be a distant memory.
Probably, and that's the thing. It's not that distant of a memory for me. Like, I do remember sweltering days like this when I was in Nipper. It just all seems to blend away for people, and obviously it does limit you a little bit, but it's also kind of glorious in different ways if you're in a position to enjoy it, which thankfully I have been. I haven't been stuck working in a place with no AC or something like that. I can imagine that would be quite difficult. We're not set up for that kind of thing, this part of the world. But anyway, we'll as you say, we'll save the weather analysis for other shows, and we'll get into what we're here to do, which is to kind of catch up with each other in terms of what we've been seeing happening in the football world. And there's been a lot. Relatively speaking, maybe not as much from a Liverpool perspective as we'd have liked, but we have seen the beginning of the pre-season and all that entails. We've seen 2 games so far, one which was split up into sort of thirds by the manager, who played pretty much everyone in a huge travelling squad, and then the second one a little bit more like what we'd expect for a pre-season friendly in terms of the amount of changes and the nature of them. Now, you're a man who has very personal experience with pre-season and what it's about, and we've spoken about it on the show before, but I'm always aware that we're picking up new listeners as we go, so I wouldn't mind just if you could kind of put it into perspective for people, because you have a group of lads there who are, mollycoddled in a way that you guys weren't, monitored in a way that you guys weren't, but it's still the same. It's a bunch of young men who work together, heading off, trying to get their heads back in the game. And the most important thing, Jan, it seems to me, is that they do get those couple of minutes on the field, and they get the experience playing with whoever the new arrivals are. They seem to be, and would seem to be, the priorities for me. I've never been one for giving much weight to pre-season. What do you say to people who do? Because we've seen it all over our own socials, lads losing the head after that opening defeat to Manchester United. I mean, maybe put it in perspective for folks what pre-season's all about, really.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's completely changed, hasn't it? And I guess for the better. In our day, they believed that the only way you could improve players' fitness was taking you into the red zone, so really taking you beyond what your body could cope with and pushing yourself. Whereas in these days, they would never allow that. Hence what we saw in the first game, where the players only allowed to play for 30 minutes. In our day, ideally in the first couple of pre-season games, they would have been looking for you to play 75 minutes. And then they would have really appreciated if you wanted to stay on and play the full 90, because then they thought this is how you get in the fitness. As I said before, they don't run that risk anymore. They don't take them into that red zone anymore. And I also guess that what we've seen so far from pre-season, the United game and the Palace game, and all the sort of circus out in the Far East, wouldn't have been something that Klopp necessarily would have liked. but he understands that it's important for the brand of Liverpool Football Club, and he would have gone out there, and it was just a case of getting it over with. What he's looking forward to is getting down to the nitty gritty of working with the players, working twice a day, having 5 or 6 days where there's no games. You just work as hard as you can, and that's when they get their real sort of match fitness, isn't it? But the games, I mean, the United game with the team that we played and with the team that we started with, it was always going to be difficult, isn't it? We were always chasing the game, and there was just no way back into it, isn't it? But it changes nothing in terms of how I see the two teams and how I see the season panning out for those two teams.
Yeah, agreed completely. And I look forward to maybe talking about the other one of those two teams in a little while and see what you make of what's going on there in the new iteration of United under Eric Ten Hag. I do look forward to maybe getting a few thoughts from you on that, because that's going to be interesting. We might have a look at some of the major rivals because we can, and why not? But before we shift focus too much from Liverpool, and again, just with the it's always interesting, I think, to compare the eras and the cultures, because tremendous success was a feature of your time at Liverpool. It's been a feature of this modern Klopp era as well. And yet, as we've said already, they couldn't be more different because of the culture around football in some ways. And I do recall, listening and talking to several of your colleagues and yourself about how pre-season was also a chance for at least one or two little jolly ups and, that kind of bonding experience. It doesn't seem to be much of an issue here, because whatever sort of chemistry Kloppo's got going on with them, they do seem to be quite a together kind of bunch. But what would you say, just as a last word on pre-season, about that as a thing? I'm thinking for the likes of our big signing who's come in, and the young kid Carvalho who's come in. It's important for them as well. All their peers are kind of casting a critical gaze on them, but also you'd like to think they're helping them become part of it. We seem to have the right group of lads there, but you'll recall what that was like as well. And is there a conscious effort on players' parts to extend an arm, or do they tend to be wary of the new boys?
No, I don't think. I think, and very much going back to the way it was in my day, they were never wary of the new guys. They always felt that if we get somebody in new, they can only help improve the team. And I think it's the same now, because I think every Liverpool player and the squad as a whole, they're very comfortable in their own skin. They know exactly what they're capable of, and I don't think they particularly worry about new players coming in. I think they welcome it. And in terms of what they do, I mean, a lot of things we did back in the day always had a lot to do with going out for a beer and bonding like that. These guys would bond in a whole different way, but I believe that Klopp is very good at getting them out of their rooms and getting them off their phones and iPads and whatever it is, and having some fun together, whether that's karaoke or quizzes or whatever. So yeah, I think the players want to do that. I know that other clubs try the same thing, and the players can't be bothered, and they go, this is boring, old-fashioned, whatever it is. But at Liverpool, they enjoy each other's company and they have a bit of fun. It's a very competitive squad, and we see it all the time, don't we? These players, roommates or whatever, and they have quizzes. Do you know each other and all that thing is? And so I just think it works well. But of course, these things come with a number of things. One of the things is that you need players, top players who've been at the club for a while, and we have that. You also need them to be leaders, isn't it? And then you have a manager who still gets 100% respect from the players, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to do all these things. And we have all those things in place.
Yeah, exactly, which is, where we are in a very fortunate position. And you look around other clubs and you can see that one or two or three of those big pillars are missing. And it does leave us a little bit ahead in terms of prep when it comes to that type of thing, and all those other kind of intangible things when it comes to people settling in and feeling part of a group and all the rest of it. And I just do think about a fella like Darwin Nunez, and I think about, your era where you had arrived and things were won, the double was done, and it doesn't get much better than that in terms of domestic achievement. There was season 86-87 then, where there's close but no cigar, and then there's a whole spate of new arrivals, and one or two of them for record or close to record fees. Peter Beardsley coming in for 1.9 million, which was massive money at the time. Barnsley for pretty much €1,000,000, 900 something thousand, and Ray Houghton comes in for 800 and something thousand. It's a tremendously massive outlay. John Aldridge had come in earlier for big money too, or comparatively big money for those days. There's pressure that goes with that. And you'll have known about that pressure yourself from, as you had said, like your time when you went to Ajax, where you're people are looking at you because of an amount of money associated with you, even though it doesn't mean a whole lot in terms of you as a person or you as a footballer, apart from maybe being a tribute to what you've achieved or how good the potential you have is. What can you say about this stress that those guys are going to be under? Because that's a massive hat to have to wear for Darwin Nunez.
Yeah, it's a big job, isn't it? And it always is uncomfortable. Joining a new club is uncomfortable. It can be uncomfortable for a day, for a week, for the month or whatever, but it's uncomfortable at some stage. And for Darwin Nunez, the first thing will be uncomfortable will, of course, be the language. As much as there might be a little bit of broken English, isn't it? He would be missing an awful lot. And of course, being in camp, 24 hours a day, and all you hear is noise and people laughing. So that will be uncomfortable. And then, of course, there's a price tag. There's no way around it. People are waiting, and it's only Liverpool fans who are on his side, aren't they? Everybody else wants him to fail. So that in itself is a problem. And then, of course, it's the way that he plays compared to the way that we play. I wouldn't suggest that instantly you go, it's a relationship made in heaven. We have to make adjustments the way that we play, and so does he. But I've no doubt that he would have considered all this. And so it's just a question of how quick do you get over that uncomfortableness. And I guess a goal for him, because that in the end, his time at Liverpool will only ever be judged against the goals that he scores. So the best thing for him is to get himself a goal as quick as possible. I know it sounds pretty simple, isn't it? But these little things are so important when you go to a new club. I mean, first and foremost, you're talking about your new teammates, and they'll all be looking and going, yeah, we played against him. He's a good player. Let's see what he can do when he's with us, isn't it? So there's all sorts of people you have to impress. And also from Jurgen Klopp's point of view, isn't it? He's brought this boy in, and he's been very vocal about how involved he's been in this transfer and how much he likes this player, isn't it? So that would also be important for Klopp to be able to hook Nunez after the game when he scored a goal. And then you kind of feel that we're on our way, isn't it? But yes, as I said before, it's a matter of time, isn't it? There will have to be some adjustment in the way that Nunez plays and the way that we play for him to fit in. But they would have considered all that before they signed him.
That's what kills me about this, is that why all of a sudden people would think we've started to do things differently just because the size of the fee. I mean, the size of the fee for Alisson Becker, people were kind of raising their eyebrows at that because they weren't 100% sure about how good he was, or all some people remember was that we battered loads of goals past him when he played for Roma. The kind of way the size of the fee for Virgil van Dijk was sneered at. But these people that we have doing their jobs tend to do them quite well. So as you say very correctly, they'll have as much info about how he plays and how he can adapt to us and much more than any of the rest of us would. But it's just an interesting thing to bear in mind, because you remember, Jan, the sort of pressure that dogged, say, most in the recent times, like Peter Crouch. You just couldn't get that first goal. There was a little mini dose of that for Peter Beardsley, I think, when he arrived as well. And it's just that thing, like you say, it's there's nothing you can do about it. They're going to have to, until that goal goes in, it's going to be a thing that will endlessly go round and round and round in the media. And you just hope that the kid himself is able for it. But that, again, Jan, we have to be honest, they tend to pick characters too, don't they? When they're picking players, it's always something that Jurgen says is that he's a really excellent footballer, but he's a great guy as well. They seem to pick fellas who they think are going to be able for, and seem to be a good blend in terms of personality. That seems to be quite an important part, and again, not something that would have been considered so much in the past.
No, and I think you're spot on. I mean, big personalities are needed, but also humble people. that seems to be the route that we're going down. And this kid looks well. And what I like about it is that we saw him against Manchester United. Then we hear from the training camp that in between the United and the Palace game, what you saw in training was them working with him all the time in terms of his movement. So as I said before, everything is going to plan. It wasn't planned that we were going to lose 4-0 against Manchester United, but it certainly wouldn't have changed our plans that we lost 4-0. They know exactly what they're going to do. I think even when we start the season on the 6th of August, there'll still be one or two of our key players who might be a little bit short on match fitness, so they might not be able to play the full 90 minutes, isn't it? But all this, I guess, probably up till the first international break, which is at the end of September, I think our plans have been laid, and Klopp would have already, obviously barring injuries or whatever, he would have known what players I can use here, there and everywhere, and he would always have a good idea already in his head how we're going to get to that first international break in terms of the Premier League games and also in terms of the Champions League games, isn't it? So nothing will change his minds because he knows he's done it before. He knows he can do it. The interesting bit is that I keep coming back to Nunez, isn't it? It's just that how quick does he hit the ground running, isn't it? Because, him and Diaz, probably compared to what we've had over the last few years, they are the ones that might just be able to change it. And if anything, they might be able to take it up a little notch.
That's right there at the end is the exciting part, and I think people should be leaning into that as much as they are into the over caution, because imagine if we could actually improve. I mean, that's and really what are you in the game for if you don't let yourself go down that road, in my opinion. Now, with that in mind, we have some more games coming up in which we can get a chance to see these players, and we have 3 that will have taken place before you and I speak again. The Red Bull Fest, which is first of all against Leipzig in 2 days' time at the Red Bull Arena, and then we play Salzburg on the 27th, which is quite a considerable amount of time after that. Now, after those, hot on the heels of those, comes the Community Shield on the 30th. Now, I've told you that there's going to be 3. There might actually, realistically, if we're being honest, there will be 4, because this is something I want to just hop off you, because I was confused. I was talking to somebody on a show recently about this, and we were trying to get our heads around what was going on, myself and Cam. So we have the Community Shield. We'll go back to the Salzburg and Leipzig games in a second. We have the Community Shield against City on the 30th of July, where Pep will be hoping for another, what he likes to refer to as a title. That can be whatever that can be. And we'll talk about City later on in the show. But within a day, Jan, there's a friendly scheduled against Strasbourg at Anfield 1 day later, and it's barely just over 24 hours later. And I was trying to work out, with the first game of the season being a week after that, what is going on? What's the thought process there? And because, I don't have any specific experience at that level of the game or that thinking of the game, I'm getting it really hard to get my head around why they would have done that. It kind of almost looks like a cock-up until you realise, no, this is our lot. There'll be very good reasons behind it. Do you think we're more likely to see the likely starting 11 for the Premier League against City, or in this friendly, or what do you think the purpose of the friendly around 24 hours later might be?
Yeah, I mean, didn't we do a similar thing last season when we had consecutive games in the last weekend before? I think they were both at Anfield, weren't they? I certainly remember going to one of them, Osasuna. So I don't know exactly what the thinking is. Obviously nice to have a home game, and some fans who don't normally go to Anfield can come and watch, and it'll be a little bit of an income for the club, isn't it? Not that we necessarily need that. What will we see? I don't know what to expect, Trev. I don't know what to expect of the Charity Shield because of the relatively sort of quick turnaround from last season, a relatively short pre-season. Klopp likes to play a lot of pre-season games, normally 8 or 9. He likes to have a little mini British tour first, where we maybe play Tranmere, Fleetwood, and a couple of whatever before we have another 5 or 6 games. He won't be able to have that. So I don't know what to expect for the Community Shield. Having said all of that, it wouldn't surprise me if we're a little bit light in the Community Shield. If there's 1 or 2 players missing in the Community Shield, that probably won't play on a Sunday either. But it will be interesting. But I do think that I think there'll be a number of players, Trevor, that won't be ready to play for 90 minutes in the eyes of our medical experts, and that we might even have to go to second or third Premier League game, maybe even the Old Trafford game is the first one where we feel that, now all our sort of A players are ready to play for 90 minutes. So what to expect on the 30th and 31st of July, I don't really know, Trevor. I think there will be surprises in both those lineups.
I'd be inclined to agree with you. And one thing you've said to me before, going back to one of our first pre-season shows that we did together, was that, these pre-season fixtures in terms of momentum and all the rest of it, I was at the time asking you the question, how important is that, to get into the habit of winning and all that type of thing. And you'd played that down, but also you went that step further, which you've gone again there, to say that, listen, you can be a few games into the season before you have that sort of rhythm, before you have what you'd often refer to as your match legs. And that's, I think, a revelation for some people who just expect it to be magically okay on day one of the season, or perhaps even for the Charity Shield or Community Shield or whatever it's called these days. But that's a real thing, isn't it? That, the actual having that sort of match fitness, game fitness, fully having your match legs, that can take until the season is underway, 2, 3, as you said before, up to 4 or 5 games.
When I played, Trevor, there was a saying, and it was basically as simple as this: make sure you're ready for the first game of the season. Well, that doesn't carry any more of that, because now it's kind of a make sure you're ready for the season, make sure you're ready for the demands of the season, make sure that when we get to the second half of the season that you're still going, that you still got your legs, isn't it? So it isn't any longer that important to be ready on the. Of course, it's important in terms of that, but when we played, it was everything, wasn't it? You had to be ready for that first game of the season, and they would push you to get ready. They wouldn't dream of that doing that today. They would, as I said before, it's been pre-planned. They know exactly what the route is to get players fit for whenever that is. So there will be players. I guess they'll have a book where they'll go, these 15 players will be match fit on the 6th of August. We've got another 3 who won't be till the next weekend, and then we got our final few. We won't be ready till the 3rd game of the season. I'm guaranteed they'll have something like that, Trevor. That would already been worked out. Well, as I said before, in our day, the aim was make sure you're ready. First game of the season, let's go. Although having said all of this, and it sounds funny, isn't it? We do have to be ready on the first day of the season, because margins, isn't it? The small margins now decide the Premier League, and it will be us and Manchester City again. So we can't afford to drop any points. Having said all of that, we probably got two starting 11s that might be able to beat Fulham on the first game back in the Premier League. But it is always interesting, isn't it? You think you get little clues when you watch them or when you listen to what they say, or you watch them play pre-season games, isn't it? But you don't really. What you need to look is into the computers and see what they've got down there in writing for how it's going to work out. But sometime come the end of August, Trevor, I guess we'll be able to explain it all.
Exactly, and in the immediate future, the 2 games against the Red Bull clubs over the course of a week or so will be where I guess we'll be hoping to see little flourishes, maybe that goal for Nunez, those type of things, maybe a little bit more of Fabio Carvalho. But again, since you and I have spoken, we've secured the signature of Joe Gomez as well, and I find that very reassuring going into the season, because as you said, Jan, it may take several people different periods of time to be ready, but we have to be ready, and surely 2 of those 4 excellent centre halves will be good to go at the start of the season, and that's all you really want, isn't it? Because it's quite a collection there, man. There's not many teams around who can rival those 4 as a group. And it reminds you of the fact that the club has come a long way.
Yeah, and they are exactly what Klopp wants in terms of centre halves. It starts with size. The size is massive for Klopp. I think Gomez at 188 is the smallest, isn't it? So in terms of that, they're perfect. They're perfect in the way that he wants them to play, isn't it? Comfortable with the high line. And when you get them together, they play as they played all their lives together. So it's not a problem, isn't it? He'll be very excited about. Having said all of that, there is some other centre halves, isn't it? Phillips and Williams and Van der Berg potentially. And I think Ben Davies is about to join Rangers, isn't he? But I think of them three centre halves, a couple will probably go, but I think he'll probably want one of them to stay. So we got 5 because young Billy has also gone out somewhere. I think he's gone to Austria, hasn't he? So I think he'd want at least 5 centre halves. So whether that's Williams or Seth Van den Berg that stays, I don't know. But we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, 4-4, top centre halves. And obviously the big problem for Joe Gomez is that he's at an age now where he needs to play. And I guess if he'd have played somewhere else, he would have been in the England setup because he's good enough, isn't it? But he just doesn't get enough minutes at Anfield. But he would have calculated all that into when he decided that there's only one place he wants to be.
Yeah, you're dead right as well. That one of those guys you mentioned is probably going to be kept around or have to stay around. The drop off is quite noticeable, but then again, it's going to be because we just made a point of how good these 4 are. So it's always going to be a bit noticeable. But Nat Phillips, it seems, is the attractiveness of him as an option to other clubs seems to have dwindled a little bit. Whether or not we can do anything with Williams is, it's questionable as well in terms of demand. And as you say, Ben Davies on his way out. I would imagine Phillips has been linked with a move away so much that it's unlikely that he'll stay around. So it probably will be young Williams hanging about. And I guess Fabinho may be considered by the manager if we're really hit a crisis as well. So that's interesting to think about, but hopefully we'll never have to. In terms of the opening of the season, Fulham, then Palace at Anfield, and then Man United at Old Trafford. Ahead of Bournemouth back at Anfield again is an interesting start to the season, and one that, as you say, we have to hit the ground running with. Now, you talked about how Joe Gomez at 188 was the shortest of our centre halves in that 4. One of our rivals there, and our third opponents of the season, have signed a centre half from Ajax, your old club. Lisandro Martinez, who's kind of notably short for a centre half at about 5'8" to 5'9" kind of height, but obviously highly rated, and a fee of I think about 57 million. Let's start there at United with our look at what other people are doing, because it was always going to be about this for us. Like, we kind of knew we've been given the hint that, if we didn't get this specific midfielder, the chances are nothing much was going to happen between way back when we got the deals for the 2 boys done and the end of the window. So with that in mind, let's focus our attention elsewhere. And what do you think of what's happening there with Ten Hag and with City? There's a couple of sort of, I would imagine, if I'm a Man United fan, mildly cringy things happening with De Jong and it not looking like the kid really wants to go to United. What do you make of their recruitment and approach to it, the ins and outs at that club so far?
Well, first, Trev, I have to say I'm disappointed that everybody who's played for Ajax or plays for Ajax has been contacted about joining Manchester United, and so far there's been no contact with me, Trevor. Do you think they've forgotten? Do you think they've forgotten I played for Ajax?
No, man. Hang tough. I think it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time.
Working their way down the list, are they? Right. So that is a slight worry, though. I think I think there's too much Ajax. Christian Eriksen, Martinez, you just mentioned there, and they've been linked with Anthony, haven't they? They've been linked with Frankie de Jong and Timber and everybody else, isn't it? And you think, whoa. I think there's too much Ajax, and I think he'll get a shot, Ten Hag. I understand that he knows the players, but it's a massive step up. And the centre half at 175, which would you say that's even great when you play a high defensive line? I'm not so sure. He's a good player. By the way, he's a good player, Trevor. He's a tough cookie. Big fee, a lot more than what I thought, I believe. But I believe it was one of those that Ten Hag went, this is who I want. You know, although the recruitment team at Manchester United suggested others. But still, you can't help but think, what exactly is going on? You know, it's been a couple of months since Ten Hag has been announced. He's been in there now for at least a month, 6 weeks. And still, you're very unsure. And you've got the problems with Ronaldo, who by all accounts wants to leave, which I think, it might sound funny, but I think that will actually help them a little bit. If they can get shot of him, and they might be able to concentrate on getting somebody else. But I still think that, you know, they give you that feel of, a bit that feel that City gives you, and that feel that Liverpool gives you, in that even Arsenal, to be fair, you know, they know what they want to do, and this is the players that are going to go. Manchester United, I think, is still a little bit too willy-nilly, isn't it? Can we get him? No, well, let's get him and see if we can get him and inquire about a few players, isn't it? So I still think there's a lot of work to be done in terms of how they play. But he can only play with the players that he's got. So I don't expect there to be massive improvement in terms of what they're going to deliver throughout the season.
Yeah, and another Dutch connection in Tyrell Malacia, who's come in as well. As you said, Christian Eriksen going there on a free very recently. But what's interesting is, I'm wondering, will this help the new manager in terms of the clear out? You've mentioned Ronaldo, who's obviously going to be a huge voice and personality around the place. And I think you're right. I think for him to actually be gone might be the easiest thing for the new manager. But then, you know, you've got also Cavani released, Mata released, Pogba, Lingard. These are all players who had been in and around the first team. Matic gone as well. These are all, and Pereira. These are all guys who had been getting a bit of first team football, were established names, and some massively probably big presences around the dressing room. You know, in terms of from a managerial point of view, which of course you've experienced as well, do you think that might help Ten Hag? Not exactly a clean slate, but a bit of a clear out and a sort of a new look to the squad under him. That can only stand to him, you'd imagine.
Yeah, and he would have looked at the squad prior to taking the job. And obviously he would have had some knowledge of all the players, and he would have looked down and he'd have gone, you know, there's a number of players that's been underperforming, but there's also a number of players who are simply not good enough. And I think he's been fortunate in that some of the, you know, Paul Pogba, do you really want to inherit that problem? A player that some people still think is very gifted, but can't put it together. So I think the fact that he's no longer there takes the problem away, doesn't it? Cavani, who didn't really want to play. Jesse Lingard, who's more interested in doing other things apart from playing. Juan Mata is one of those, that really good player, but I think his legs have gone. There's no room for him in Premier League. So I think all those departures will help him, and they will also give him some money to throw about in terms of wages, which they're very, very good at, isn't it? But I still think that there's some way from being able to put in. I know that people kept saying it last year. You know, they got some really good. I don't see it. I just don't see that good team that everybody talks about. So I still think that a long way away from being able to put a team on the pitch where you go, I'll tell you what, this looks really good. Where's the right back? Where's the left back? Centre half, what is the combination is going to be there? That midfield, Christian Eriksen will improve them, absolutely no doubt. But you look at the rest of them, Bruno Fernandes, who's completely lost all confidence. And you got Rashford, he's out of form. Martial, who looks like he doesn't want to play football. Jadon Sancho is underachieved, isn't it? There's still a long way and a lot of work to be done. And when you look at it like this, Trevor, is that, yes, of course, Ten Hag needs money, but the one thing he needs more than anything is time. And are they in a position where they can give him the time? They start with Brighton at home on Sunday, the 7th of August. That in itself will be a real eye-opener for Ten Hag, because this is a team that United are expected to beat. But I can see Brighton coming to Old Trafford, dominating possession, you know, and already then he'll get a taste of what it's like to play in the Premier League. And then, of course, playing Liverpool at Old Trafford, isn't it? It's either one of them where he gets into people's good books, isn't it? People go, same old, same old.
I'm very interested to see how it pans out for him, because again, a little bit of an unknown quantity for a lot of us, apart from lives. We'll have known the name and we'll have seen what he was doing with Ajax and all the rest of it. But in a Premier League where it's increasingly, it seems to be at the very top at least, about the cult of the manager as much as anything else. I mean, you have to be this huge personality. I'm thinking Klopp, I'm thinking Guardiola, I'm thinking Conte, people like that who are having this massive impact. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there. And just to move sideways across the city there a little bit to look at what Manchester City are doing. They've gotten in Ortega. They've gotten in Julian Alvarez, Calvin Phillips, and Erling Haaland, and that's quite a bundle for them to get in. And in terms of going out from there, it hasn't been quite as dramatic as you might think. And yet, in Fernandinho and Gabriel Jesus and Raheem Sterling, that's a couple who've been very much in and out of first team and so oftentimes ever present in the first team. So a little bit of change there at City as well. Some people I've heard talk about it are leaning into that too much a little, I think, in terms of hoping that it'll be a bit of a restructure and he'll have a lot in his hands there, whereas we might have just a little bit of tweaking to do. Not sure I go along with that. What do you make of the quality of their introductions to that squad? Obviously, in Haaland, we have someone that you and I thought might well be the ultimate Premier League player, so that's going to be kind of one to watch.
Yeah, I think he's the one, isn't he? I think he's the one that worries us, because if you think that they're going to add somebody to what is already a very talented squad that's capable of getting 25 plus Premier League goals, then of course, from our point of view, we might need to produce even more. So Haaland, you can't put a finger on anything in terms of his career so far. Everywhere he's gone, he's produced. He's been sensational. Yes, he had one or two little injuries. Having said all of that, scoring in the Austrian Bundesliga and the German Bundesliga, it's not quite the same. Certainly the German Bundesliga is a very open league. He had loads of space to run into. Will it be the same in the Premier League? It won't. And defenders were better than what he's ever produced or performed against before. So as much as I think he'll be a success, I can also take part in a discussion that talks about the problems that he might incur. Will City get the ball forward quickly enough? Because he doesn't like that little pass in behind so he can use his pace and his strength. So I don't know. The young boy, Alvarez, is the one that really excited about. I think they feel that they pulled a real rabbit out the hat here, that this is going to be a really, really top attacker. So interesting. Calvin Phillips, I like him. I think he's a really good player. How much will he get to play? I don't know. Rodri is an outstanding number 6. So now they've got 2 really good number 6s. Will they miss Jesus? No, I don't think so. Will they miss Sterling? Yeah, I do think they will miss Sterling because when you compare him to the other wide people they got, whether that's Mahrez or Foden, Jack Grealish, and he is different, isn't he? He's sort of maybe less skillful than them, but he does have an end product, although he just missed a number of chances. So I think it was an interesting transfer. We've heard it from a number of years that Pep Guardiola has never been 100% sure about Sterling. Well, we've seen that now, isn't he? He's decided to offload him. I think they're about to sell Zinchenko as well to Arsenal, which again won't be a big loss because, strangely enough, he doesn't play a lot. I like him. I think he's a really, really good player. I think Arsenal is getting a good, versatile player on their hands, isn't it? So, yeah, City, we know they're going to be strong. We know that City's aim is to get close to 100 points again, isn't it? That's the challenge. We just got to make sure we're up for it.
Well, we might sort of finish our look at the different clubs with Arsenal in a second, and we'll go to the others that we've left out maybe on the next show and talk a little bit about them. But the interesting segue there is obviously Raheem Sterling, and to take a look at what Chelsea are doing. Again, back to my point about the cult of the manager in Tommy Tuchel there, you've got a lad who's, love him or loathe him, very much his own man with his own vision of how the things should be going and how the team should be played, and massively highly rated. He's got trophies in the bank there as well. So that's all to his credit. There's an interesting sort of dynamic at the club now in terms of the new ownership and the recruitment. And I think originally it looked as if there might be slight tensions there, but when you look at what's going on, they've gotten in Raheem Sterling, and I think that immediately improves their attacking options. You look at where they were possibly a little bit weak, especially with the likes of Antonio Rudiger heading off to Real Madrid on a free, and Andreas Christensen heading off to Barcelona on a free, and different things like that. Lukaku, who hadn't just worked out for Tuchel, gone to Inter. The big area that they wanted to address was the centre half department, and you could see even last season that's where they weren't great. And now they've got Koulibaly, and a lot of people are talking about his age, but Jesus, Yanni's very good at what he does. Talk to me about Chelsea, how they're fixed in your opinion heading into this season, because if I was to think of two areas that they should probably address, it was an attacker in the style of Sterling, and specifically a dominant centre half in the vein of Koulibaly. And this one worries me, I have to say. I don't like the idea of them having a fella like that playing to the top of his ability.
It appears that they've done really good work since the new owner come in. I mean, there was some uncertainty when he came in, but they've acted very swiftly, haven't they? They've changed a lot of personnel, and here I'm talking about chief executives and director of football and whatever else, and they move very swiftly, move people out, got new people in. People talk about Bowley as an owner. He's a very, very good owner. He's very active. He's not scared. I mean, of course, he's not going to buy Chelsea for all that money and then not have a massive transfer budget. Of course, he's got a massive transfer budget. And I think what they're doing, they're sort of continuing in the vein that Chelsea does things. Chelsea's very much about here and now, isn't it? It's not about signing a 24-year-old centre-half who can play here for the next 8 years. It's about signing somebody who we feel right now is the best man for the job, whether he's 31 or not. A bit the same with Raheem Sterling, isn't it? Bang, two good opportunities to turn down. So Chelsea, yeah, I mean, I'd look at their centre midfield and, if you can keep N'Golo Kante fit, but I don't think they can. Jorginho, not for me. Kovacic alike, but again, a little bit too inconsistent. So I still think they've got areas they need to address, isn't it? But I think they'll be strong. The big question is that towards the back end of last season, he found it difficult to get a tune out of Tuchel. So it'll be interesting to see where he's got the players, whether they're 100% still with him, whether he can still motivate them. Because again, to be part of it, they'll have to be their absolute best. They got the players, they got the manager, they got the infrastructure. So yeah, expect Chelsea to be strong.
100%. I think that's a fair assessment of them. I think they certainly don't fall off from where they were. So that's certainly one to keep an eye on, and a concerned eye at that. And we'll just, like I said, finish with this just initial look at some of the rivals by talking about Arsenal. Because there are some crossovers there with some of the people we've been speaking about. And in terms of outgoings, I know Lacazette went off to Lyon on a free. I think as well, in terms of people who might have been around the first team, Guendouzi went to Marseille. Obviously, Omari Hutchinson went to Chelsea, but not necessarily a first-teamer. In terms of incomings for Arsenal, Marquinhos came from Sao Paulo, Fabio Vieira's in from Porto, Matt Turner from New England Revolution, and Gabriel Jesus from Manchester City. And it looks like, as you said, Zinchenko joining him. Again, to all intents and purposes, looks like a solid enough window from them so far.
Yeah, I agree. And what you have to do here is look at what Arsenal are working towards. And you can't compare them to the way that Spurs or Chelsea are doing things. They're doing things for here and now. Arsenal got a clear plan. And it's step by step. It's a bit like Liverpool, although Arteta hadn't been able to get the same tune out of the players he had as to what Klopp did when he came. But it's the same sort of, we'll get there. We have a plan. We won't move away from our plan. And the plan is to sign a lot of young, talented players to find, a bit like Liverpool, isn't it? Find bargains in the market to get them in at a relatively price that reflects them, but also in terms of wages, isn't it? So I think Arsenal will struggle to get in the top four. But I do like what they're trying to do. I do like the direction that they're going in. It wouldn't surprise me if, give it another year, and I think Arsenal might be back being real contenders for that top four. Interesting. It's hard with the managers, and I don't know how good he is, but I do like a lot of things that he does. He's won some big battles against some of the big players that he's had, people like Aubameyang and whatever else. So they obviously proved that the board believe in him. They backed him, and I think they've had a decent window.
Yeah. Again, another one. I think it does come down to that. It does come down to how he's going to turn out. Is he going to be able to elevate himself into that category of the really great managers around the Premier League who can have that influence? And yeah, the signs are there that maybe. Also, there's been some negative ones too. So it's going to be interesting to watch them. And at this stage of the year, all we can do is speculate. That's what we're all about. And just one last little bit of speculation to sort of draw you in on, because we won't have a chance to speak again, like I said, until pretty much the season is about to start. We'll have the 2 Red Bull games under our belts and the Community Shield and the friendly probably before, like we say, we do a show again. With that in mind then, from your own gut feeling or things you might have heard, obviously better connected than most of us, and you might hear an odd thing. We heard Klopp say Julian Ward was still doing a few things, and an awful lot of people are reading an awful lot into that. I don't know. That for me, that could mean trying to sort out contract extensions or that type of thing. But a lot of people are hoping for one more move in the transfer window, and I've heard this rationale that I want to run past you, where people are saying, look, I totally get it that we want Bellingham, we want the Tchouameni, we want the one that we want, and it's worth waiting for, a la Virgil van Dijk. And yeah, we can all see the logic there and understand the thought process around it and all the rest of it. But my take is that I'd be a little bit wary about some of our midfielders in terms of durability and availability this season. Not necessarily ability, just those other two. And when it comes to that, then I'm thinking, look, why is it not possible for us to get someone who's maybe not the best, the pinpoint top target, get someone who might be in the next rung down, who could be brought on, or who might be young, like this kid at Aston Villa, who seems to be a bit unsettled, or the likes of that. Do you see any moves there at all between now and the end of the window, Jan?
Well, trying to second guess what Liverpool are planning to do is almost impossible, isn't it? But I spent quite a bit of time last week over at the club, and everybody seems to be of the same understanding that the only thing that might happen is some outgoings, but the club are not really looking to bring anyone else in. And he just leads everybody to think that next summer it's going to be the big one for Bellingham. It'll be interesting. I really don't know. I agree with you in terms of our midfield players. And when we've got Oxlade-Chamberlain with a minor injury already, and there's other midfield players you can look at and think, how many games at the level that's required are they going to be able to give us this? And so it is just like, what isn't it? But I think Klopp always looks at his midfield and goes, even if I have to play James Milner for 75 minutes in 30 games, he'd be quite happy to do that. He feels comfortable doing that, isn't it? So as long as Klopp is comfortable, I think we should be likewise.
You know what? You're dead right. As long as he's comfortable, we should be. I just wish people were, and I wish I could always be myself. But we are what we are, football fans. We all have our own thoughts and desires and wishes, and we'll keep them on the back burner until we speak next, man. And hopefully, in the interim, we'll get to see some interesting bits and pieces from our new boys and from our established icons and all the rest of it, as we see ourselves settle into some sort of pattern. Between now and then, I believe you might be heading off on a little bit of a holiday. I hope you'll enjoy that. Any plans? Is it going to be one of those relaxing holidays, Jan, or are you going to be a busy boy all the way through it? No,
the active holidays, they've long gone. And this is just a really quiet. It's a cruise to the Norwegian fjords for the week. 17, 18 degrees, so no sunbathing, which I don't do anyway. Load of walk and a bit of fun on the fjords. Something nice to eat, Trevor. A significant number of I guess gin and tonics, but I think we'll have a nice time. He'll just get in the mood for the new season, won't it?
Love it. That sounds like an ideal holiday, and very much the kind of way I'd be leaning myself if I was available to go away for yet another show, Jan, where we've really literally gone round all the various ports of call we could. I do appreciate your flexibility on these things all the time. No matter what the subject is, you've always got a tuppence worth to throw in. So once again, thanks very much for that.
Yeah, I mean, football is sort of back, Trevor, isn't it? But we're still looking for more, aren't we? You know, we're looking for more transfer news, and we're looking for the real stuff to start. But it will pretty soon, isn't it? I mean, the community shield, has some kind of a feel about it, isn't it? So before we know it, Trevor, we're up and running, isn't it? You know, and once it starts, you know, this season will be for real, Trevor, because of the World Cup, isn't it? It will be relentless.
It sure will. And actually, next time out, we must maybe we could even arrange a special guest appearance. There's been a man taking your name in vain, but in a very, very in a very respectful way that I wouldn't mind chatting to you about in the podcast to come. A nice little bit of light-hearted distraction for us in the
fame at last, Trevor.
Fame at last, buddy. Fame at last.
even Kevin De Bruyne on the last one didn't know who it was.
Oh God, players these days, players these days. We will
so
wrap
rude.
it up. So rude. We will wrap it up. That's Jan Molby. I've been Trev Downey, and we will talk to you again very, very soon.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.